It is just mind-blowing to think where we started and where things are right now.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're unlocking the greatest secrets of one of the most tumultuous periods in history.
The carburetor froze up, the plane crashed into the English Channel. End of story.
Number 10. The Disappearance of Andrew Ladner. Private Ladner was a proud son of Mississippi who was shipped off to the Pacific in 1942. During the Battle of Bunagana, Ladner was on a mission in the jungles of New Guinea. Sadly, Ladner was killed in action.
And during a battle in New Guinea in 1942, Ladner was killed at just the age of 30.
Unfortunately, the American Graves Registration Service was unable to locate his remains when they combed the battlefield 8 years later. As it turns out, that's because his remains were discovered in 1943. Listed as an unknown soldier, Ladner was buried in a nearby village.
He was then buried there, and his remains were never identified until about a year ago.
After POW and MIA organizations conducted a review of unidentified remains, his body was exhumed, and a 2016 DNA test confirmed his identity. After more than 70 years, they finally brought Private Ladner home.
His family was then notified and decided to have him brought to Mississippi, where he will be honorably buried at a family plot.
Number 9. Missing German vehicle. One of the very few positive consequences of climate change is that sometimes droughts uncover archaeological treasures. That's exactly what happened in 2022 in Cermede, Italy. As the Germans retreated from the region in 1945, a British recon plane spotted a German half-track truck. Despite multiple attempts, Allied forces on the ground couldn't locate it. Decades later, as portions of the River Po began to dry out, the vehicle was discovered in the riverbed. It appears as if German troops pushed it into the river rather than letting it fall into Allied hands. Number 8. The Discovery of LCT 326. In late January 1943, a flotilla of landing craft set sail from Scotland to Devon in southwest England. The winter weather was foul, the waters choppy. On the night of February 1st, landing craft LCT 326 was reported missing off the coast of the Isle of Man. In 2020, researchers discovered the wreck of the LCT 326 off the coast of Bardsley Island. The island, a tiny strip of land off the coast of Wales, is 100 miles from the purported crash zone. The cause of the wreck is still unknown. Theories range from bad weather to a sea mine. In either case, the families of the boat's 14 crewmen can now get a measure of peace knowing its final resting place. Number 7. The USS Albore. This Gato Fleet submarine sank 13 Imperial vessels during her time in the Pacific Theater in World War II, then vanished without a trace in 1944.
In 1944, Moss's parents received a telegram saying their son was missing. He was aboard the USS Albore. The following year, another letter, presuming him and about 85 others on the submarine, lost.
The sinking of the aircraft carrier Taiho in particular made the Albore a highly esteemed sub, adding to the Navy's dismay at her disappearance. In early 2023, researchers from the University of Tokyo pointed the U.S. Navy to a wreck off the coast of Hokkaido.
Saying with the help of a Japanese professor, the USS Albore was identified.
In February, an unmanned Navy vessel was able to confirm the remains of the Albore. She likely hit a mine while on a routine mission to refuel, losing all 85 people on board. Number 6. The Disappearance of H Holm. An Army private from Boston who went MIA fighting the Germans in Italy. Holm and his squad were in a firefight south of Rome when he disappeared. He was never reported as a POW, and his body was never recovered.
A Private Holm was assigned to Company B, 7th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division.
At the end of the war, the Army listed Holm as killed in action. After almost 80 years, a set of remains found 3 miles west of the battle were disinterred. The POW MIA accounting agency performed a DNA analysis of the remains in 2021.
The Department of Defense says that the remains of U.S. Army Private H Holm of Boston, who was 20 years old at the time that he went missing, was accounted for on April 6th.
After confirming his identity, Private Holm was brought home and buried in October 2023. Number 5. The missing sailor from the USS Indianapolis. After its top-secret mission delivering the components for a nuclear bomb, this Navy cruiser was sunk by the Japanese.
In less than 15 minutes, the USS Indianapolis disappears beneath the waves. Nearly 300 men go down with the vessel.
Almost 900 men went into the sea, and famously, only 316 survived the dehydration, shark attacks, and exposure to the elements long enough to be rescued.
After 4 days of hell, a Navy plane on a routine patrol spots an oil slick on the ocean's surface. Descending to investigate, the pilot is stunned to see hundreds of sailors drifting amongst the waves. He immediately radios for help.
Among those assumed to have perished was radio tech Clarence William Donner, since he was listed as a crewman on the Indianapolis and wasn't rescued. But in reality, Donner was alive and served until he was discharged in 1946. A clerical error had listed him as a crewman when he had actually just hitched a ride once to his billet. It took 73 years for historians to finally and conclusively set the record straight. Number 4. Finding Heaven Can Wait. The B-24 bomber was utilized by every branch of the U.S. military during World War II, and it played a central role in bombing campaigns in the Pacific Theater.
Heaven Can Wait and 2 other U.S. planes were headed toward the second of 2 targets near New Guinea when they encountered enemy fire. Heaven Can Wait was struck and fell to the water.
The family of Second Lieutenant Thomas V. Kelly Jr. mourned the disappearance of his B-24, nicknamed Heaven Can Wait, for 70 years. Then, in 2013, one of his relatives discovered a website with information about his plane.
On Memorial Day in 2013, Sandy's son, Scott, began the lengthy process of learning more about what happened to the B-24, Heaven Can Wait.
The family spent 5 years working with researchers, and Project Recover, along with the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, went to work searching for the wreck. Utilizing new technologies and advanced unmanned submersibles, oceanographers found the wreckage of Heaven Can Wait in 2018.
Just knowing it was there and finally found was huge news for the families of the servicemen who were lost.
Number 3. Family letters discovered in Toronto. Fans of Antique Roadshow know that every once in a while, old mysteries are solved in the nooks and crannies of old homes. Toronto contractor Dave Smart was working behind a furnace when he discovered a box full of World War II-era love letters.
When I first picked them up, I kind of thought, when I had a chance to think about it, that they should go back to some family.
They were correspondence between Amy Gorman Whitley and her husband Arthur. Smart spent several years as an online sleuth trying to hunt down their family.
I'm glad I've spent the time, and I'm glad they are now going to, we'll say, worthwhile.
The story went viral on local news outlets, prompting a community effort to find the family. Thanks to their work and Ancestry.com, the letters finally made it home to their relative, Scott Gorman, in 2020.
So it'll be great for us to learn so much about the Gorman family that we never knew about before.
Number 2. The missing crew of the Lady Be Good. This B-24 bomber fought in the Mediterranean, and on April 1943, the plane and her crew disappeared on their way to an airbase on the Libyan coast. In 1958, geologists with a British oil company discovered a wreck while flying over the Libyan desert. It was the Lady Be Good, though there was no sign of her crew. The U.S. military searched for their remains for months. They were finally discovered in 1960, many miles from the crash. It appears that after overshooting their destination, the crew bailed when the plane ran out of fuel. Miles from the wreck, they attempted to traverse the desert. A handful made it almost 85 miles before eventually succumbing to thirst. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. Number 1. Glenn Miller's plane crash. One of the most well-known and beloved bands in America in the early 1940s, the Glenn Miller Orchestra had reached the pinnacle of fame. But its leader felt a sense of civic duty, so he joined the military to bolster the troops' morale with music. 10 days before Christmas in 1944, Miller was aboard a transport plane en route to Paris when it disappeared over the English Channel.
It's gone.
Yeah, he takes off from an air base in England on the way to Paris, and his plane just vanishes. Presumably it crashes into the English Channel, but you know what? Nobody ever found the plane.
Historian Dennis Sprague spent 5 years combing through military records to find the truth about why the plane crashed. Eventually, a diary found on Antiques Roadshow provided the final clue. The engines of Miller's small transport plane likely iced over while it was flying low after diverting 40 miles out of the way.
The airplane turns nose down, and in 8 seconds it's in the water.
It's just as simple as that.
Yes.
We think we cracked the Enigma code on these mysteries, but if there are other World War II sleuths out there with clues, let us know in the comments below. Yes!